Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to introduce Tim Boyer, who is the ODOT RWIS coordinator. He's going to go ahead this morning and introduce you to our presenter and get our webinar started. Tim, if you'd like to go ahead.
Hi, Victoria. Thanks, everyone, for joining. This morning we have Ken Mashad from Schneider Electric. He will be presenting the product Total View that we now use from Schneider Electric, which is a replacement for ScanWeb, which many of you have had access to in the past. What this product allows us to do is essentially have a very in-depth view at all the RWIS data that we have from all the weather stations around the state of Ohio. But without much further ado, Ken Mashad can show you all the features that we have available. Ken?
Great, thanks Tim. Good morning everyone. Thanks for joining us for the training session on the Sensor Data Management System, or Total View. Let's get started right away. What I have up on the screen here right now is what's called the RWIS summary. I was able to select that from the 4 selections over here, RWIS summary. And what I'm displaying right now is all of the RWIS sites that are available in Ohio DOT. And as you can see, there are quite a few. There's over 180 plus sites available in Ohio. So that's a lot of data to look at. A couple things I want to cover here quickly is there's some colors indicated here. I want to point those out to you. If there is no color, that means that the site is operating normally and everything is reporting as expected. All the sensors and data is being reported as expected. A yellow highlight means that there are some sensor errors, and you can see over here we have a sensor error on one of the surface conditions on sensor 1. And then we have some red ones, which means that we have not received any data, and it shows the date of the last time we received data. Now I should point out that some of these sites are certainly in construction, so they're not reporting any data. There are some sites that we're changing IP addresses on. That work hasn't been completed yet, so they're not reporting. So those are the 3 colors that play into the status of the RWIS sites in Ohio DOT. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot of data here, so we have some settings over here that we can go to. So I'm going to click on the Settings tab, and you can see that we have a status area, and we also have a station area. Now, with the status area, right now I have all 3 of them selected, meaning that I'm going to show all sites that are normal, no data, and sensor errors. And we can change those settings. And over here, we have all of the different districts selected, as you can see. Now, just as I mentioned before, I have isolated some of the sites that are having communication issues or being worked on for communication, and sites that are under construction. So I've kind of isolated those into those 2 categories. So what I'm going to do is turn off the stations, right? And then I'm going to select District 1, and we'll say OK. So now what it's going to do is it's going to pull up all of the sites that are listed in District 1. Now you can do that for all the other districts, but I'm just going to use District 1 for my demonstration. So again, as you can see right now, we have a number of sites here that have sensor errors. Sometimes these things clear up in the next update, so we'll just kind of monitor that. But again, we have the time of the report, we have our air temperature, dew point, relative humidity, wind speed, visibility, all the different items that are being reported by the RWIS site. Now, for example, if I wanted to just look at sensor errors, I can go over here and I can turn off the status and then select just the ones that I want to look at. So I'm going to select sensor errors, and then you'll see that it's now only displaying the ones that have some type of sensor error. And you can set that up any way you want. You can select all, turn that off, or select the ones that you want. We'll select normal. Now we're looking at all the sites that are reporting normal data. And again, you can select different districts if you want. We'll select District 2 just to demonstrate that. Change that to District 2. And now we're looking at all of the District 2 sites that are reporting normal data. So it's a nice tool. You know, if you're interested in just specific districts, you can select multiple districts. If I wanted to look at District 1 and 2, I would just, you can select any combination you want over here for your, for sites that you want to view. So it's a nice tool. You can also export this information. It'll export it to a CSV file so that you can save this. You can take it and manipulate it any way you want. Let's say you only wanted to look at certain columns in a report. You can export that to a CSV file, load it into Excel, eliminate the columns that you do not eliminate the columns that you're not interested in, and save that information for later viewing.
Ken, this is Victoria. I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Just as a quick reminder to those who are on the phone line, if you could please mute your phones by pressing #6 or #6 on your phone keypad while the presenter is speaking, we would appreciate it. We'll open the phone lines up later for questions and answers. Thanks, Ken.
All right. Okay, Victoria. So again, as I was mentioning, the export tool, you can also print the information. Also, if you desire, I guess some of these turn out to be rather wide, as you can see here. As I move the scroll bar across the screen, there's a lot of information. Printing sometimes is rather difficult because of the width of the report. So I always recommend using the export, save it to a CSV file, load it up in Excel, and then manipulate the data in any way you want. So again, as we move things across the screen, just to cover some of the other items that are here, I'm just going to switch back to District 1. Moving things across the screen here, again, we get into the road conditions. So now we have our surface conditions. We have our road temperatures. If there's any bridges in the area, we'll have those reported here. Freeze temps and all the various information, subsurface temps, all that information is displayed here. So again, you know, like I said, there's a lot of information being displayed off of these RWIS sites. So always recommend moving to the bottom of the screen and then sliding the bar over so that you're seeing all of the data. That pretty much covers the RWIS summary. The next thing I wanted to cover is the RWIS history. We did a lot of work in this particular area, and I'm just going to pick one of the sites here. Now there's two ways you can get to RWIS history. You can get to it from the RWIS summary. So if you have a list of sites here and you want to go to RWIS history, you can just select the site. I'll show you that here in just a second. Or you can go over here to the historical data tab, and you can do the RWIS history from this location also. So let me just go back to the RWIS summary. And we'll select this site right here. Now, again, I should also point out, if you mouse over the sites, you'll get the full title of the RWIS sensor itself. So this one here is District 1 in the Defiance County, and it's labeled as Site 188. So I'm going to click on that RWIS location right there. And what it's going to do is it's going to load up a graphical display of the data. So what we're looking at here is a 24-hour period of RWIS data from this particular site. As you can see right now, we're looking at the temperature data, and we have 2 lanes here and dew points and temperature. If I mouse over one of these, obviously this sensor is not reporting, but this one is. If I mouse over that sensor, you can see the different, it highlights the temperature line for the SR2 eastbound lane. Same thing applies for the dew point. Same thing applies for the air temperature. Now you do have some controls over that. If you were just interested in the atmospheric temperature, you can turn off items here, say OK, and now we're just looking at dew point and air temperature. And to turn those back on, you simply go over here and we'll just turn on the surface temperature here. So that's just one of the graphs. I'll show you some other ones here too, but what I want to show you is you can change the order in which the graphs are displayed. So as you can see right now, I have temperature, precip, wind direction, wind speed, and if I wanted to display those in a different order or select additional charts, I can select the preference. And let's say that I wanted to select visibility, and let's say I wanted to make that my second chart. I can move that up to the top. We'll leave precip where it is. And let's add, we'll put precip rate in there. And again, I can move those up, save it, say OK. And now you'll see that the order of my charts have now changed. Now I'm looking at temperature, visibility, precip detection, precip rate, wind speed, and gust. And again, for all of these charts here, just hovering over any of the information, I'll go down here to the wind chart. Hovering over any point in the line will display the value at that particular time. So here we're looking at a 12 mile per hour at 2:45 in the morning. That's a wind gust. And sustained winds were 6 miles an hour at 2:35 in the morning, wind speed. So again, just by simply mousing over the information, you'll display the particular reading at that point in time. And again, this basically applies to all of the charts. So here we had some precip, 92 hundredths of an inch of rain per hour at 6:45. If there are charts that you don't want to see, again, simply go in. Let's say we didn't want to look at precip detection. We can just simply turn those off, say OK. And now the charts have changed again. Now we're just looking at 3 charts, temperature, visibility, and wind speed. So this is the graphical representation of the information. You can also look at it in a tabular format by simply clicking on the table. And now we're looking at it in a tabular format. And again, right now we're looking at it in a 24-hour period. So we can mouse down and see all the different trends as far as air temperatures, road temperatures, all the different information that's being displayed. So just another way to display this. Again, this can be exported or printed. So 2 ways to display the data. The other thing I want to point out is you can go back in history a year, and you can do that in 7-day blocks. So you can go, so right now we're looking at a 24-hour period. If I wanted to look at a 7-day period, I could select the dates, and I simply do that by going here to the calendar. So right now we're looking at the 19th to the 20th. Let's go back to the 17th, and we'll leave it the 20th. So now we're going to go back, 3 days? I'll say go. Since we're loading a fair amount of data, it'll take a little bit of time. So now we're looking at a longer period of time. Again, a lot of data to look at, but different ways to look at that information. We can also go back to the graphical chart. And now we're looking at it from Sunday to Wednesday. And again, you can do this 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, up to 7-day periods, and you can go back 1 year. You can also change the start time and end times by just simply clicking on the clock. So right now I'm going from 12 a.m. Let's just say I wanted to go from, say, 12 noon because there was a particular storm that occurred during that period of time. I want to change the times that I'm looking at. I can go back and change that to 2 a.m. Again, hit go, and my charts will change to reflect the time period that I have set up in my start and end times. And the same thing will be reflected in the tabular format also. So you see now we're going from 1 p.m., 12 p.m. on to 1 a.m. For this particular time period. The other thing to point out here is you can select other sites by just simply hitting the drop-down arrow here, and all your sites will be listed. So you can pick any site that you want from the list, and it will display that information for you. So that pretty much covers the historical RWIS portion of it. There's a couple other things that I wanted to point out. There's a custom forecast tab here. There's some things that were placed here that were on the old ScanWeb system. So you have your NCAR link, you have your National Buoy Center link. You also have the National Weather Service link, a glossary of terms that we use in the product, and then you also have your precip timing graphics, special graphics that were created for Ohio. showing you that one there. Looks like you're going to get a little light snow, finally. It's been pretty nice in Ohio. So that information is displayable right there in the Custom tab. And then the last thing I wanted to cover a little bit here is the weather chart or weather display. Clicking on the weather now, we're looking at obviously the state of Ohio, and I have the RWIS observations turned on. If I mouse over any one of these locations, I get the atmospheric and road conditions reported. If I click on it, I will get a forecast for that particular location. We'll look at the daily. So there's the daily information for the site. And it also gives you the status, again, of the RWIS sites themselves. And one thing I'll point out here, I'll turn on a few more layers here in just a few minutes, but there is always a key to what you're seeing on the screen on the right-hand side of the item that's selected as a layer. So here we can see valid data, sensor errors, and no data in the last 60 minutes. Over here, we have some settings for the actual layer that's being displayed. So right now, I have display age data, maximum age of 60 minutes. So what that means is if the site doesn't report data in 60 minutes, it will turn the triangle red. I can change that to longer or shorter periods by just simply clicking on that drop down. So I can go from 30 minutes to 360 minutes, which controls the color of the triangles themselves. So that's just a little explanation about the RWIS observations that's being displayed. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit in the Columbus area. Up here in the layers, a couple things I wanted to point out is we have some custom layers that were created for Ohio DOT. We have the water vapor satellite. We have the display of pavement temperatures, and I can click on that. You'll see that the pavement temperatures are being displayed. Let's see. All the different road conditions, dry. Let's try dry. There we go. You can see wet, different indications. If there's no conditions right now, it won't display anything. And then the other thing I want to point out is we have added custom layers for the districts. So we're looking at District 6. If I turn on District 6 and back it out a little bit so you can see it a little better, it outlines the district itself. So different selections there for you to make it easier to view the map itself if you're interested in a particular district. If I click on the Ohio district, the Ohio DOT districts, it will put all of the district maps or outlines on the screen itself. So those are some of the custom layers that are under the Map tab. The other thing I wanted to show here is under the Weather tab. There's a couple things. Let me just, well, we'll get to that here in a second. Under the Weather tab, we have, obviously the radar. I'll turn that on, and obviously there's a little snow going on. Just some features I want to point out just quickly that are very valuable layers themselves. Storm corridors, I'll just click that on real quick here just to show you. Storm corridors will give you radar indicated conditions, heavy rain, severe hail, dangerous thunderstorm, possible tornadoes. Go back over here, you've got your National Weather Service bulletins. You can turn those on. This particular one I like myself. This is the local storm reports. This gives you valuable information of what's going on right now. As you can see, we have some here that popped up. If I hover over those, these are actual observations. So this person here is reporting at Wilmington, snow 2 miles southwest of Xena, 1 inch measured so far. Again, you can look at different things here. So when you have a snowstorm approaching or you have severe weather approaching, you can look at these local storm reports and get an idea of what's coming. So here's a report from this location of 2.2 inches of snow. So there's valuable information that kind of gives you a heads up. And there's a lot of information, like I said, looking at the key over here. Again, you've got severe weather, winter weather, floods, winds, and others, and multiple. In the severe weather season, they'll report things as power lines down, trees down, all kinds of information, valuable information that gives you an indication of what's coming into your location. So that's one that I always like to point out. And then you have all your other items here, temperatures and dew points and humidity and all that information. But one key one that I want to point out here, and let me just zoom in a little, I'm going to turn the radar off. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. One valuable one here is the RWIS cameras. Now what this is I believe we loaded something like 360 cameras for Ohio DOT. Now these are not necessarily RWIS cameras. They are more of a traffic camera flavor. I'll go ahead and turn that on. And like I said, it's a lot of information that's being loaded. 360 images take a while, and you do have the ability to animate those. So here we have some that are around the Columbus area, and all you have to do is just hover over the image itself. It gives you a description of what it is. If I click on it, it will enlarge that image. And I will say this, camera images have become a highly requested item. A lot of DOTs and different entities are adding cameras to their accounts. Very valuable information, as you can see. As radar indicated, it's snowing in the Columbus area, and the camera also plays that out. I can click on the animation. You'll see that we're going from daylight or nighttime to daylight. You see there's some fairly heavy traffic on the right lane there. Camera angle changed, but again, it's available for your use. It's obviously valuable information that you can see in fairly real time. I believe these are updating like every 15 minutes or so. So valuable information being displayed in a camera image. So those are the items that I really wanted to cover. It's always nice to get questions. So Victoria, I don't know, I think it's time to open it up for some questions.
Great. We'll go ahead and do that now, Ken. If you have a question and you are on the phone line, I would ask that you please either unmute your phone or press pound sign and number 6 on your keypad to unmute. And you can go ahead and ask Ken any questions, or Tim any questions, or alternatively you could type them into the chat pod on the bottom left-hand corner of our screen. So,
Victoria, this is Tim. I'm just going to jump in real quick.
Sure.
A lot of participants, I believe, are not necessarily associated with ODOT directly, or may not be familiar with the ODOT district. So I did upload a file that is a statewide map that shows the county breakdown of which counties belong to which districts. If any of the participants want to download that and be a little more familiar, because the stations, especially in the list form back in the RWIS summary, is sorted by district and by county, and then there are descriptions to show where it is based on the route. But also, like kind of showing, there is the ability to display the district outlines on the map as well. And you can, if you're also in the map function, you can hover over each station, and it shows that full description, and it should be able to tell you which district and county it is, each station is in as well.
Great. And if you're interested in downloading that file that Tim has uploaded, there is a pod right above the chat pod that says Files with the number 5 after it. All you would have to do is click on the actual name of the file, which is Ohio-ODOT District Counties-editable in Word. I imagine that's Word. And once you click on that file, the download file button will be activated, and you'll be able to download that to your computer. Good thinking, Tim. Thanks for uploading that. I do see that we have a question that... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it is that I did actually convert it to a PDF. That way it made sure that none of the formatting got messed up.
Okay, no problem. And we have a question from Greg Long. He would like to know if you could please send a link to the website where RWIS is available. So Tim,
for Greg,
that,
as you can see at the top of the Ken's window, the weather address would just be weather.dtn.com, and that'll direct you to a login page. And I've also typed in the username and password, which is ODOT RWIS, and that is the same for the username and the password to access this site.
Great. Now, Ken, one of the things that I thought of as you were presenting is that we've been forecasted to possibly have a pretty substantial snowstorm maybe come into Ohio here in the next day or so, maybe not. How would we use the RWIS system in order to look at future forecasts and start making determinations on, you know, what type of coverage would need to happen for that snow event?
Well, obviously you're going to want to look at the forecast now. I don't believe this particular system, let me look here.
Yeah, it's slated to be south of 70. And I saw some buttons that said on here, you know, future forecasts. Would that be something we'd be able to tap into to help with?
Well,
Victoria,
go ahead, Tim.
Victoria, the product that's available with here, this is really as simply as we can just the RWIS information with a little additional current weather forecast or current weather information you know, via the map. In terms of forecasting, that's really only available internally to ODOT employees.
Okay. Are there hopefully some plans, though, maybe in the future to make that available for our local partners?
Possibly. Part of it just becomes the fact that we do pay for the weather forecasting for ODOT. I don't know if it would be in the scope of our contract to make that available outside of ODOT.
Okay.
No, as you mentioned, Victoria, you know, obviously they have some winter weather advisories showing here for portions of Ohio, and we also have a winter storm watch, and you know, you can gain additional information by simply clicking on the watch, warning, or advisory itself, and you can get some additional information. This is basically what the National Weather Service is supplying, so that would give you a little bit of a heads up.
Great. Are there any other questions from our audience this morning?
I do see a question from Amal in the chat box. There are different logins for ODOT employees. There are general county ones that are available, as well as certain individuals who have dedicated logins based on their position. If you are an ODOT employee on this phone call and you would like access to the more additional features that are available to ODOT employees, if you want to just send me an email, timothy.boyer@dot.ohio.gov, I can direct you to that information.
We had a question that came in from Roy Hatton concerning the login information to the site, and I just reposted the website address and also the username and password, which are the same, ODOT RWIS. Tim, it looks like there's another question there from the City of Troy.
Yes, that regarding the app, Ken, I'm not quite sure, but there is an app through Schneider Electric. I'm not sure about the functionality of this account and how it might work in the app. That's actually a good question, Ken, if you might know how that might.
I don't believe the this particular login was set up for the iPhone app. I can check on that to be sure, but I don't believe it was. But the internal Ohio DOT accounts all are set up for the iPhone app or Android app also. But I don't believe this account is.
Ken, is that something that could be added to this account?
Oh, sure, it could be added. I guess that's something that would have to be discussed with the sales rep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we've got another
that's
question.
we can look into.
Great. There's a question from Russ about the map displaying on the iPhone. So for those who do have access to the app and using it on their iPhone, does the map display very well on the iPhone?
Yes, it does. I use it all the time, and it's one of our more popular features of the product nowadays. And we have just recently added the RWIS information to the app. So prior to the winter season, you were only getting the normal weather information, but with the new release we just put out here in the last few weeks, you are now able to see the actual RWIS information also. So if you haven't looked at it and you have access to it, I certainly invite you to look at it.
Okay. And then we've got a question. Go ahead.
I did notice that the City of Troy had a second question in that same chat, or in that same line, about how this website's different than OGO. This website allows, I think the main difference would be the interactive map feature, as well as being able to view historical data, and definitely the full spectrum of the data that is available from RWIS stations. OGO certainly does still have a feed from the weather sensors into the map. So if you're just checking current conditions, you could certainly still use the OGO website. But if you wanted to go in and search some through, either get more detailed information from some sites, or if you wanted to look back at some of the historical observations from these sites, this tool might be a little more useful.
Great. And there's a question from Steve in the chat pod, if you could take that, Tim.
A subscription fee, there's no subscription for using this login to access the RWIS data. However, I believe if you wanted more features from Schneider Electric themselves, such as forecasting, that would be something you would have to contact them about in terms of subscribing to their weather forecasting feature.
Steve, does that answer your question? I guess we'll find out in a second.
All right.
Yeah,
Just to cover a couple other items while we're waiting for some additional questions, just to point out a few other things. There's a time bar up here in the upper right-hand corner. This shows the time of the actual radar image itself. So we're looking at a 9 a.m. or 9:30 Central Standard Time image. Now that's based on the time of the computer, so yours would certainly say 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. We have a few tools across the top: latitude, longitude, distance lines, and range rings. Just to show range rings quickly, say you were located in this location here, and you wanted to track the motion of a storm. You can put a range ring on there. This little pointer can be used to indicate the travel of the storm itself. It does give you some distance hacks here, 15, 30, and 45. So this is 15, this is 45. Some additional little tools there. Obviously your standard zoom bar over here. You can also click on the map. A double click will zoom the map in. And then this is your animation control down here. I didn't show that. I can put the radar in motion. I can change the speed of the radar by just simply moving the slider bar. And now it'll go slower. And then the last thing over here, again, these are your layer settings. Over here we're showing the active layers that are actually being displayed on the screen. What this will do, this area down here, the recent layers, it will store the last 4 layers that you displayed. So it's a quick way to go back and forth between the two. So if I wanted to put the road conditions back on, I can simply click that and the road conditions are back on. And if I turn them back off, you'll see they drop down here into the Recents tab. Just wanted to point those out.
Great, thanks, Ken. Are there any other questions from our audience? You can unmute your phone by pressing the pound sign, the number 6, or press the mute button on your phone to unmute, or you can pose your questions in the chat pod. Okay, if we don't have any other questions coming in at this time, you can always feel free as well to email questions after the webinar is concluded, and I'll be happy to provide those to our presenters for today. Again, this is the Ohio Local Technical Assistance Program, the Ohio LTAP Center, and we were very pleased to be able to work with Tim Boyer and Tim, your subject matter expert, Ken. So we appreciate the presentations this morning. Is there anything else, gentlemen, you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Nope. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Appreciate it.
Yes, thanks everyone.